12 points.
12 points. 12 points.
When we talk about Eurovision, usually we are not used to say the words one of the best and the United Kingdom in the same sentence. For it's not the case with the men who are we going to see today. I'm very glad to welcome to our Dūzė Pua Eurovision podcast one of the greatest Eurovision YouTubers in the world, ESC Gabe. ESC Gabe. I'm sorry. Hi.
Thank you so much for that welcome. One of the greatest in the world is extremely flattering. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Aren't you afraid of being on the verge of becoming the new William Lee Adams, so that you will be invited to every single national selection in Europe and as a guest star to every single Eurovision?
Well,
or maybe you are aiming for that.
That would be great. I was going to say, you say it like it's a bad thing. I think it would be amazing to go to all these different national selections. It's a real privilege to be part of a jury and help choose a song to represent an entire country. So that would be really, really cool. That's one of the things I'd probably be most excited for. But let's see what the future holds. Maybe one day.
Weather blogs are so popular, but people sometimes hate them. What is your relationship with their content?
So vlogs are in the position that they are in for a reason. They didn't just become the biggest by accident, And I think I don't agree with all of the opinions of all of the different team members over there, but I think they have a really important role in the Eurovision fan community. And in many cases, if you ask people, ultimately, you're going to watch a reaction up to a song. What's the first reaction you're going to? Most people will say, I'm going to go and watch the vlogs one. They're in the position they're in for a reason. So love them or hate them, they've earned the right to be there.
So we are a Lithuanian Eurovision blog and YouTube channel. We are called Dūzė Pua. It's because of Dūzė Pua in French. And if you like this video, please subscribe to our channel, share this video, click that like button, write in the comments what you think. And for we are from Lithuania, so therefore some of our conversation will be Lithuania centered. We are going to discuss some wider topics, but I just would love one thing that could happen. At the moment we have 750 subscribers. I would like this to go north of 850. So please subscribe to our channel and of course subscribe to ESC Gabe. But I guess that if you are here, you already know who ESC Gabe is. So Gabe, we met each other last year in Malmo. I interviewed you for the Lithuanian national television and we met on the day of the final. How do you remember that day? Because I was so afraid about the future and the integrity of the contest. I was literally thinking that some countries may withdraw hours before the contest.
So I had the same fear as you, and I remember just how scary that day was, how much was going on, how fast everything was happening. I think I look back on it, and my main feeling is I just really hope we never have to go through any day like that at Eurovision again, because there was a genuine possibility of countries withdrawing. It didn't come to pass, and now there's a lot of lessons to learn. I think what we also should remember is how strange things got that day, and how there was a lot of funny moments too. Things like there was like the person walking around the press center with a giant penis balloon and trying to work out who it belonged to before ultimately only hours later finding out that it belonged to the Georgian delegation. So I look back on it obviously with a kind of, wow, that was a loss. But at the same time, there was a happy ending at the end of the night, with Nemo winning, and the contest survived. Let's just make sure we don't have to be in that kind of position again.
Are you afraid that 2025 could be as turbulent as 2024 was?
Yes, to be honest. I still worry about this a little. I think the core aggravating factor of Israel participating in the contest is naturally still there. Now, how much tension this brings is obviously deeply connected to what's happening in Gaza, and as long as there is a ceasefire in place, it will lower the tension at least a little bit. But if they're there this year, it's still gonna cause some problems. I think you're also going to see delegations will probably behave in a different way. We have this new code of conduct, which, to be honest, just puts in writing many of the things that were implicit in the rules already. So I think there's going to be some tension again. Do I think it's going to be on 2024 levels? I think that's highly unlikely, unless there is another incident like we had in 2024 that very suddenly turns up everything to 100.
So right now you are in Estonia. You've just been to the national final of Estonia, to Eesti. Is it your first time in the Baltics? Is it your first time in Estonia?
So I've actually been to Estonia. This is going to make me sound insane. I've been to Estonia 5 times in the last year. So me and my girlfriend randomly picked a place on a map to go for a city break. And we were like, Tallinn, sure, why not? Let's go to Tallinn. That was the first time. After that happened, these Minas invited us to their album launch. That was the week after. So we flew here, flew home, flew straight back again. Then in September, we were invited to their show in Tartu. And so we were back for that. And then in November, they were going to do a show with a live band. And again, they invited us. And we came to Estonia, but the show got rescheduled. So we just had a nice few days here. So this is the 5th time. And I love it here. It's one of my favorite cities. I really like how it's a capital city. So you have everything that you would find in a capital city, but also it's small enough that you can walk around, you can get anywhere you need to be in 15 minutes. It's calm, it's quiet, it's really, really beautiful. And obviously, like all the cities, all the major trading cities along the Baltic Sea, it has this really beautiful old town, right? And so it has, things to do as a tourist, it has this incredible history. So it's one of my favorite cities, and I'll be back again probably very soon as well.
Okay, that's a heck of a lot of times to visit Estonia in 1 year. I think I've been to Estonia only 4 times in the entirety of my life, but I really like Estonia, and I really like Tallinn. I've only been there once. Did Estonia make a right choice by picking Tommy Cash for Eurovision?
I think even though it's probably not personally to my taste, I think this was the right choice in the selection in terms of what Estonians wanted. It was an overwhelming result. More than 80% of the votes cast were cast for Tommy Cash. Second place had 10% of the vote. I think it's the right choice, but I think there are some problems that need to be solved before it's ready for a Eurovision top 10 finish, let's say. I think it's a little underwhelming at present. I think the staging needs a little work. And I also think his attitude needs a little work too, because he can't approach the contest with the same attitude that he approached Eesti. It'll backfire on him if he does. But yes, I do think this was probably the right choice for Eurovision for Estonia this year.
What was it with his attitude that you didn't like? Was it that Eurovision winner 2025 caption in the name of his video, or what?
Well, yes, that's part of it. So you touch on it, and there's been a series of things. How he's conducted himself through the show. His first comment on stage when he won was, "I told you so." And a series of other times, a few little things backstage that have been going around that just make it feel like he's maybe been a little presumptuous at this stage. You can't be presumptuous about Eurovision in the same way as you can about a national final. And I also think it's very important to show sufficient respect to the artists around you as well. There's obviously time for that to change, and he could do something, very different at Eurovision. But right now, I just think it was a little too much. Being cocky is not necessarily a bad thing, and being really confident, that can be part of a stage persona, part of a character. But there's a line that you just got to be careful of, because if it goes a bit too far, it can start to turn some people off. I think with Eurovision fans, that is what has happened a little bit. People do feel a little turned off by it.
Well, Tommy Cash is, of course, a very big star in Estonia. Actually, even in Lithuania, I think many people know him. But when I see his performance and when I listen to his song, it just doesn't scream like a very good result with the juries. How do you think Tommy Cash could do in Eurovision? Because at least for me, it looks very far from a possible winner.
So I think this is going to have a real public vote appeal. I wouldn't be surprised to see 100 points from the public, but I think you're absolutely right in your prediction about the jury. This is going to struggle with the juries, especially if his vocal is like it was in Eesti Laul. It was not strong enough. There's no way around it. If you perform like that at Eurovision, you'll come down the bottom with the juries. And if you get 10 or 20 points from the juries, doesn't matter how well you do with the public, you have no chance of winning. And I do think that this song has no chance of winning.
Well, I can tell that we in Lithuania, at least my friends who are Eurovision fans, we are a little bit mad at Estonia. So this may be a message to our Estonian viewers, if we have some, because recently Estonia has been sending rather, I'd say, generic songs, with the exception of last year, of course. But it seems that they are rewarded more when Lithuania, and we feel that we send a little bit more authentic entries. And that is why I would like to move to Lithuania. And when you were at the Estonian national final, at the very same time I was in Kaunas, and I've been to the Lithuanian national final, and ours was so long that if you had a private jet, I think you may have flown after the Eesti Laul final to Kaunas, and you would still be on time for our super final stage of the top three. So how closely were you following the Lithuanian national selection?
Well, I was doing my best to follow it, because there's a song in that selection that I absolutely adore. And what I really found incredible was Eesti Laul finished, and then it felt like in Lithuania you guys were going on for another 3 hours. It just went on and on and on and on. And I seem to remember there was an interval act that was about 40 minutes long. So it sounds...
Oh, come on. Please stop this propaganda. It was only 30 minutes long, okay?
So to be honest, I thought it was a pretty decent show. I thought it was a pretty good show, and I really liked some of the songs. I just think maybe it needs to be a little more efficiently delivered next year. Now, Lithuania is far from the only country to be guilty of this. I'm looking at you, Italy. But this one, it took a very long time for us to get to the end of this. I'm sure you felt that too, as well.
Yeah, of course. And I think everybody in Lithuania felt this thing too, because the most popular social media in Lithuania for expressing your opinion is Facebook. I do not know about the UK, but in Lithuania it is still Facebook. So the entirety of Facebook was discussing only one topic, not the winner, but the length of that final. And one comic of ours, Paulius Ambrazevičius, he's also a host of a morning quiz show for school students, for pupils. So he made the joke, so please do not turn off your television sets, because in a moment you will see our show in the morning. So and both my mother, my girlfriend, everybody was like writing to me, how long is it going to last? And we were thinking the very same thing, because we had to make our way back to Vilnius. It was a very, very tiresome day. So Catharsis was your favorite.
Yes.
I've already been told this by you. What do you think about Tavo Akis, or Your Eyes in English, and what results could Lithuania expect from this song?
So this is my favorite Lithuanian entry, possibly ever. I think this is an absolutely incredible song. It's so raw and authentic and powerful in a way that transcends the language barrier as well. The image of the band is so striking. You know, because to be honest, he looks so authentically sad when he sings the song, but it really sells it. I think he's really intense, in a way that is super, super captivating. I think when it comes to this kind of music, kind of post-punk, it's very, very difficult to sell this in a Eurovision context. And that's one of the things that I think is the biggest strengths of this song. It's so accessible. People will hear it once, and I think they will remember it. Even though it's in Lithuanian, people who don't speak Lithuanian will have that tavo, like it'll catch them straight away because it's such an easy, in the same way Luktel was a very easy kind of like phoneme to pick up straight away. So I really do think the sky is the limit for this. I'm so excited. I mean, as we saw by the fact that this won by a country mile, I think Lithuanians recognize at least some of its potential as well. So I am so excited. I cannot wait to see it on the Eurovision stage because this could get really, really high up the scoreboard.
Yeah, Catharsis was also my favorite song. I actually voted for them 10 times in the first stage of the final, and I thought that the votes are going to be summed up, but then I learned that they are not. So I only voted twice in the super final. It was a little bit risky, but thank God the gamble worked out, and Catharsis is going to Eurovision. What I really like about their entry is that, unlike the majority of Eurovision songs that have some kind of a message, Catharsis, the band members say that the song doesn't really have a particular message, though it has a very particular emotion and mood, and you can put your own message upon this sadness, upon this loneliness and the pain that, at least for me, as a Lithuanian native speaker, is felt during the song. So are you going to make any bold predictions for Lithuania?
So I made one very bold prediction straight away on Twitter, which got a lot of pushback, but I'm going to stand by it again. I think it's not likely, but it's not impossible that this song wins Eurovision. This is a dark horse to come at the very, very top. I mean, if you look at the songs which are out so far, the only song which is more likely to win Eurovision than this out of the current bunch is Erika Vikman from Finland. I think this is a sound that is so relevant, that is so familiar to so many people, executed in such a perfect way. It is going to connect with people on a really wide scale. I think it has jury potential because of how amazing the vocal is. And it has that public vote appeal as well. It's not likely. It's still an outside chance, but you can't rule it out. This genuinely could finish right at the very top and win Eurovision, in my opinion.
In the afternoon of the day that we are recording, so after some few hours, I will go on air in the Lithuanian national television, and I've been told that I'm going to be asked about the successes and failures of alternative music in Eurovision. And what I was thinking about, that we had some really successful alternative entries. I don't know, Rona Nishlu from Albania, it's their ever best finish. to some extent, Aminata from Latvia. It was very modern and courageous for 2015. But I wasn't able to think of any winners like that. And you are saying right now that Lithuania have a very slight opportunity to win it. How would you answer the question about the ceiling of alternative music in Eurovision?
Well, I think it depends on how you define alternative. And I mean, also, if you take Rodonishtiu or Aminata, those are actually very different songs to this. I would argue this is much, much more accessible than those, because it's a sound that people are quite familiar with, that kind of sort of rock band sound. In that sense, it's not that alternative in terms of of the instrumentation, in terms of how it feels sonically. It's then that it adds something to that makes it feel, all new again, right? I think you should also look to, and this is the real tough thing, is, rock bands in Eurovision. Again, it can be very up and down. There've been some great rock bands in Eurovision. They do struggle to get to the very top. I don't think people are going to feel that it's too out there or too alternative. And in terms of winners, you could say the Code was alternative and out there and different. So people can go for something that might not be what they'd usually listen to. People can go for something that wouldn't be the kind of thing they'd hear on the radio, right? And we know that, and so I genuinely think that could be the case with this song. We also know, as we've seen, singing in a language which isn't English is not a problem anymore. We've passed this era. You look at Salvador Sobral, for example, or Måneskin and so on. I mean, Måneskin is the ultimate example, I think, that this song can look to in terms of, yes, a band can still win Eurovision. So I would say to Lithuanians, don't be scared of being too weird or too alternative. This is the right weird and the right alternative, and it's going to connect with people, because I do not know very many people who don't like this song. And I don't know many people who didn't immediately think, oh, wow, this is great. So I'm so optimistic.
So, of course, you're not saying that they will definitely win Eurovision. You're only saying that they have a very slight opportunity, maybe a window. But anyways, are we going to win it or are we not going to win it? Which is probably going to be the case, because 36 countries are not going to win Eurovision this year. Anyway, we will be striving for some kind of success for this song. What do you think is going to be Katarsis' path to success? Is it going to be televote or is it going to be the jury vote? As Lithuania actually struggles with the juries, with the exception of Monika Linkytė.
So I think actually one of the strengths of this song is it does have appeal in both areas. I think the public will appreciate this because it's not a sound they're used to hearing in Eurovision, but it's a sound that a lot of people like to listen to and a lot of people will connect with. In addition to that, I think Lithuania will continue its tradition of performing very strongly with the public vote in the UK and in Ireland especially. We may give you, you may receive another 12 from us. In terms of the jury votes, I think his vocal was perfect. The singer's vocal was perfect at the national final. If he sings it exactly like he did, then that will be a strong finish as well, because they will connect to that. It's going to be one of the best vocal performances in the competition. The only thing then is just to make the staging as captivating as possible. And I think it needs to reflect the mood of the song. They've got some way to this, but obviously the extremely limited resources when you're in a national final where there's 30 participants or more than that means that it's not so easy to, do something very specific, very complicated. They'll now maybe have a little opportunity to do that. I know that the Lithuanian broadcasters' budget for the contest isn't the biggest, but there should now be a little more wiggle room. So to go back to the question, I think the answer is very good news, is that I think it has appeal in both, probably roughly equally, in my view.
You've said that this is going to be your favorite Lithuanian Eurovision entry. What went wrong with Urius and Run with the Lions that it is no longer in the first place of yours?
Well, Julius, I like that song now more than I did back then, but
it's just a joke, Gabe. You do not need to comment on that.
I was thinking about. I was thinking like, oh God, how am I going to break it to you that I don't like that song very much?
I mean, you've been laughing from the very beginning when I made this question, and and you still started to answering that. Anyways, now I will be serious. At the moment, Lithuania has a qualification streak of 4. That is our best ever qualification streak. We finished in top 15 in every single Eurovision of this decade. So it's 4 times in the top 15. Yet we are not able to go north of the 8th place in this decade, and our best result is still LT United, the 6th place in 2006. That was almost 20 years ago. How should we do it so we could get into the top 5, for example? And are we on the right path?
So I do think you're on the right path. I think there's been a certain element of bad fortune in the results. I think, firstly, starting with 2020 was the big unlucky moment for Lithuania. I think the group would have had a very serious chance of finishing in the top 5. I think the 2 years that followed that, Discotheque was not quite as strong as On Fire, in my opinion, but it still obviously got a great result, gone in the top 10. The two monikers, I think Lithuania got the most out of those songs and got the highest position that reasonably could have been hoped for. I think in particular, Monica Liu performing Sentimento that well really managed to push that song above where people might have expected it, given how little was hoped for it before the contest. Finally, I think poor Sylvester Belt was hard done by, and I thought that song would finish higher. So that one was a real shame. I think the difficult thing is, I look back at these results and think, well, you're not really doing anything wrong. There's been a bunch of different music styles, but each occasion it's been executed well. It's been a good result. I think it's a matter of time before there is a great result. I think this year is going to be that year. So to be honest, I think the number one piece of advice would be just to stay focused. Don't allow sort of the want for even more to distract from the course you're on, because it's going to deliver it in time. Maybe get rid of the semi-finals at the selection there. Maybe make it a little more slick on the way there. But in terms of at Eurovision, there's really not much that Lithuania is doing wrong at the minute, and they shouldn't change it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
I think it is very unlikely that we are going to get away with our semi-finals, because Eurovision is so popular that people watch those semi-finals no matter how bad they are. And they cannot be bad, because when you have 45 songs, it's more than Sanremo, it's more than Melody Festivalen. And I'm sorry for, at least for Melody Festivalen, not all their songs are very great. So how could Lithuania have 45 good songs or even great songs? Okay,
that's what I mean. If you think about in Montenegro, they didn't even have 45 songs submitted to the broadcaster for approval. Now, I do think if it's popular domestically, then that makes perfect sense why the semi-finals are remaining. I just think it's such a big selection. It can start to get a little difficult to digest everything in such a short time.
Well, definitely not for international audience, but I hope that we have international audiences at least here, because we've been talking a lot about Lithuania, and I have a couple of questions about general questions about Eurovision that do not regard Lithuania. So we have seen Moldova withdraw this year, and even though we have Montenegro coming back and the same number of participants, 37, the overall trend is that we have a decrease of participating countries, especially from the former Eastern Europe and especially from that Central Eastern Europe. Will the trend continue, and are we on the verge of having so little countries participating that the two semi-final shows will not make any sense?
So I think the contests, and I think the EBU understand very well that it's in their interest for there to be two semi-finals. It's in their interest for the number of participating broadcasters to not fall really below 36. 36 is kind of the critical point, after which you start to run out of reasons to have two semi-finals. I think they will ensure it doesn't go down any further, but in order to do that, I think they need to look into reducing the costs again, not on the affiliation, on the participation fee, which, as we've seen for Moldova, is 20,000 euros. It's as low as it could feasibly go without not existing. Instead, they need to look into why is it that these production costs are so prohibitively expensive. Is there some kind of way for countries that qualify under certain conditions, they can receive, say, a 15% reduction of costs on stage? Because even the basic package at Eurovision is, tens of thousands of euros, and it's a lot of money for a country like Moldova. If you remove some of those barriers, it will start to make more financial sense for them to come back. The other thing that does help for these smaller countries is the fact that that pre-recorded backing vocals are allowed, because it means that they have to pay for less hotel rooms, to be blunt, and they don't need to pay for backing singers. These costs all really add up. So we need to see more steps on the production side. That's where the money is going. And that's the thing that these small countries can't afford and can't justify to their broadcasters. If they get something sorted there, I think we could see a few countries back. I think Romania is not impossible. Moldova, I think we will definitely see back next year. North Macedonia keeps stating its intentions to come back. And Bosnia, if it ever clears its debt, will surely return as well. And that would be fantastic too. So there's things that the EBU can do in addition to what they're doing now. They're taking some steps, but it's not enough. And I want to see a 43 country contest again in the near future. They can't do that without reducing production costs and doing it fast.
Do you see a political perspective to that? And I'm not talking about Russia or Belarus, that were basically excluded because of political reasons. But when we talk about countries like Hungary, Slovakia, maybe even Bosnia, who have some far-right, maybe not always far-right, because Fico in Slovakia is rather just a nationalist, a leftist nationalist. Anyway, some nationalist leaders running the countries. Do you see this as some kind of one of the reasons why they are withdrawing, and especially when we see a somewhat of a democratic backsliding both in Europe and in the US, but this trend may continue in Eurovision too.
Yes, and I think you can add Turkey to that as well. List of there is a new wave of very backwards conservatism across Europe, which in some countries has been enough by itself to knock broadcasters out of Eurovision. Unfortunately, this is because in the eyes of someone like Viktor Orban, or in the eyes of Fico or Erdogan, any of these people, the existence of Eurovision as an extremely liberal show, extremely socially liberal and open-minded show, is a threat to them and a threat to what they stand up for. I find it very funny that these supposed strongmen are so scared of a little song contest. But unfortunately, as long as these kind of people are in power, it seems unlikely that these countries will return. That said, it looks like the next Hungarian election might go a little differently. So maybe in a new administration, we could see Hungary back. The same is true for Turkey, where the opposition has openly stated they think that the country should return to Eurovision as well. So there are some opportunities in there, but they're tied into much, much bigger battles that we can't influence directly.
Well, I'm very afraid about Georgia being a country that may withdraw because they're definitely going eastwards in a political sense. Aren't you afraid that Eurovision is going to be a little bit less freer if the political trend goes to less freer Europe?
Well, yes, I do worry about that, but I worry about more about what Europe it means we are living in if that is the case, because that would imply the ascendancy of more far-right parties or more parties that will appease dictators like Putin. So in a way, I think you're right, but also if that does happen, if Eurovision sort of starts falling apart because of these kinds of regimes, I think it'll be the least of our worries. We're going to have some pretty big problems ourselves if that's the case. Hopefully, we are seeing the high tide of this now, and it will recede in coming years, as we, because it is absolutely tied in with things like the Russian essentially holding European gas supply to ransom, which then drives up the cost of living in Europe, which sows discord, which pushes people towards extreme parties, as well as the continuing trend of widening inequality, which is true basically everywhere in Europe as well. What that means is, if you look at the year just gone, incumbent parties lost pretty much every election in Europe. There is a widespread dissatisfaction that these groups are taking advantage of. The thing is that this has happened before, and it's usually not sustainable because they often crumble at their first sniff of power because they are not fit to lead. And you can see that in even the most successful examples of this kind of politics politically, where they've held on for years. Orban is now falling apart. He is their poster boy. So there is light in the end of this tunnel. But if things do get worse, Eurovision is going to be the least of our worries.
I didn't expect that we are going to get into such difficult political discussions. But if the audience like that, so I will definitely recommend my latest video about Intervision, which Putin is about to revive. And actually, I would like to thank Gabe because I asked him for some kind of advice. What could I do the next time so that videos like that are better? And actually, the advices you gave me about the thumbnail actually helped that video to kind of skyrocket in our context. So it's now our second most popular video ever. So thank you for that.
I'm really glad to hear that. It's a great video. It deserves more eyes on it. It was a really fantastic video. It was really, really interesting and brilliantly well presented. As I said to you, when you asked me for feedback, I could tell from the way in which the story is told, I can tell you're a professional. And it was great. I thought it was excellent. So yes, everyone should go and watch that video.
Okay, thank you, Gabe. And let's end on a higher note because we've been a little bit pessimistic. The very last question: what are your favorites this year, and who is going to win Eurovision?
Okay, so my favorites, I will start, of course, with Lithuania. I love that song so much. The others in my top 3 favorites at the moment, I will say Albania. I think is looking better and better with every song that comes out. Such a beautiful arrangement, brilliant vocal, really connecting with people in a way that an Albanian entry hasn't in some time. And finally, my favorite is Erika Vikman, Ishkoma from Finland. She's a rock star. She's just a rock star. And her performance at the national final was show-stopping. The song works so well live on stage. It's tailor-made for Eurovision. And right now, I think who's going to win? Also Finland. And I think she's a strong, strong favourite. Like I said, Lithuania has that little dark horse chance. It's not impossible. But for me at the moment, Finland is the one to beat.
Aren't you afraid of Erika struggling with the juries like Carrie did,
No.
or like Baby Lasagna did?
This will do better. This has more jury potential than either of those, in my opinion. Whether she will get, I mean, Baby Lasagna still scored more than 220 points with the jury. So that's a very good score. Whether she'll get to those heights depends on a whole bunch of factors, you know, with the live performance. But I'm feeling comfortable in that regard at the moment. I think she's going to be all right.
Okay, thank you very much, Gabe. I invite everyone to follow and subscribe to your channel. But as I've said already, I guess that everybody already does that. And I will invite everyone to subscribe to our channel, to write your opinion in the comments about the topics we've discussed. And of course, push that like button because it helps with the algorithm. So bye-bye, everyone.